So what I'll do is I'll put the ToneDexter on the screen, and we've got some slides as well, and I'll ask you to show us how this works and the best ways to use it, if that's okay.
No, so the question is, what is an impulse response and how does it transform a pickup into sounding like a microphone? I think that's your question, right?
Yes, how does it do it?
And for those, sort of people who are just, they're musicians, but they're not technical, and most musicians aren't technical. Impulse responses are just another way of saying a complicated filter. And I think most musicians have some sense of what a filter is. If you have an EQ with a bass or a treble or maybe a mid or maybe it's a graphic EQ you've been exposed to, then that's kind of a filter where you're altering the frequency response. In other words, how the low frequencies, the mid tones, the high tones, their relationship to each other. So you can make it sound more trebly, more bassy, whatever. Well, an impulse response is like that, but it's as if you had 16,000 or 32,000 different controls, finely spaced. Okay, so on one level, an impulse response is a filter that has thousands and thousands of bands of adjustment possible. So you can think of it that way. And it's done with digital processing. It's something that can't be done in the analog world. So this is one of those examples that, digital can bring you power that you cannot get in the analog world. And so what happens when you create a wave map, or if you're using one of the other, somebody else's product, what they're doing somewhere under the hood or in their factory or whatever, is they are comparing the sound that gets into the microphone to the sound that came from the pickup. And they're comparing it to find out what the relationship between those two is. And they're creating this filter after they discover that relationship. The filter, or the impulse response, represents the relationship from how to get from the pickup to the mic sound. And that's why we call it a wave map, because it's kind of a map that takes you from one to the other. So it's a way to get from the pickup to the mic sound. That's why we called our thing a wave map. And it sounds simple in concept, and there are lots of ways to try to solve that problem, let's just call it. A lot of technical ways to do it. And we spent a lot of time, especially my partner and friend Andy, we spent a lot of time working on the best way to do that. And it's, how can I say, it's more complicated than it sounds, because you have a person either strumming their guitar or playing some notes on their violin or playing the upright bass, and what they give you, you have to make sense out of it. It's not like you have a test signal. If you have a Kemper or some other IR device that's learning your speaker cabinet, well, it's generating a test signal, and that test signal makes the mathematics really easy to figure out the impulse response. In the case of what we're doing, there is no test signal. The user is the test signal, and they play what they play, and we don't want to restrict what they play. We just want to interpret what they play and figure out what's important in order to help us create that impulse response. And, I'm very proud of what we've done. I think it works really well.
Yeah, that's not easy to do then, is it?